I'd like to share some of my thoughts with regards to the current state of AI development tools as well as models for Kotlin multi-platform projects as well as Hugo projects. And before I begin, just so that we're on the same page, I'm talking about two different things. One is the model and the other is the tool. The model is something that big AI research companies would push out for people to use. Some of the common things that you've heard about are Claude in the programming space, ChatGPT, Gemini, which is the Gemini 2.5 is the new one that everybody's raving about, and so on and so forth. These things are essentially brains that require a lot of money and effort to train. That's really not something that small people can actually do. It requires a lot of resources. And the other part of it is the tool. The tool is the thing that, the way to think about this is a body that houses the brain, right? You have the brain, you have the model, which is very smart and intelligent, but you got to figure out a way to make it do things for you. And currently, there are a lot of different tools on the market. And in my previous video talking about AI tools, I talked about, I think, 4 different kinds of things. And specifically, you can go on to, like, for instance, if you were using ChatGPT, again, ChatGPT is a brain, is a model. If you're using ChatGPT, the tool that you use to interact with, if you're using their official website, is their website. The website is a tool that connects you to the model to make the model work for you. And the tool that I have turned to use for development mostly has become Cursor. Cursor is an integrated development environment that's built on top of VS Studio, and then it talks to the models in a backend. Cursor requires an internet connection because most people can't run those gigantic AI models locally, and plus they won't let you because you don't have the files to those AI models. So Cursor, what Cursor does is you download it, you install it on your computer, and then you program within Cursor. It's an IDE, it's a text editor. You can do things in it. Then to the right of it, you have this window where you can ask questions about this particular project, and then you can pick the backend model that you want Cursor to use to sort of help you solve problems. And Cursor so far is the best in the market. As far as I'm concerned, you pay $20 and you get unlimited access to models. $20. Like, if you were to use Aider is another one, command line interface tool that you can use to talk to backend AI models to help you code. If you were to use Aider and then connect it to OpenRouter, for instance, and you pay per use, again, per token in the AI models, you'd be paying through your nose if you're doing any sort of development. Easily over $100 a month, if not way more. So Cursor, my understanding is that a lot of people a lot of venture capitalists are dumping their own money into Cursor, sort of floating it at $20 a month. For now, it is an incredible deal. And within Cursor, typically I find myself using 2 models. One is the Claude 3.7 Pro, and the other is Gemini 2.5 experimental for the moment. 2.5 Pro experimental, I think that's the name of it. They have very different characteristics and personalities. Even if you feed them the exact same prompts, even if you structure your prompts to sort of suggest a personality, if you will. I find Claude to be much better at dealing with Hugo. So the project I'm working on has only 2 things, right? Kotlin multi-platform, which is mostly written in Kotlin, and then Hugo, which is the web backend of it, because KMP currently doesn't really have very robust support for web support. I found Claude to be much better at Hugo part, and Gemini to be much better at the KMP project part, which is sort of understandable because, KMP, Kotlin is backed by Google, and Gemini is made by Google, so presumably they have a better, cleaner data set to work with when training the models. in addition to that, like I mentioned, their personalities are very different. Claude is very good at doing things, plus the things, doing the things you asked, plus the things you didn't ask. It many times can be frustrating. For instance, if I wanted Claude to just change one thing, it would do that. And then even if you, in the prompt, even if you ask it not to, it would go ahead and change a few other things because it thinks that it's in your best interest too. And a lot of times you shouldn't. So that can be quite frustrating. But what I do find Claude to be, the wild thinking to be helpful is when you're brainstorming things. When you're, I'm not a designer, for instance, right? I write code. I don't know how to structure a web page for it to look nice. Claude does a much better job without arduous prompting to come up with very good and visually appealing designs. And this is mildly puzzling because the Material 3 UI component standards and libraries are kept by Google, and I would imagine that Gemini would be more forthcoming with regards to suggesting you the Material 3 standards. But no, if I wanted some UI to be designed to be sort of storyboarded, right? Claude does a very good job, and its wild thinking is helpful because in a lot of cases I don't even know what to ask it to do, right? I'm not a UI designer, so I don't even know what to tell it to do. And it would make all those kinds of suggestions that I find, oh, nice, I want this, and that. But when it comes to actual dealing with code, Gemini is a much more reliable partner. When you ask Gemini to do something, it does it. And it also explains to you, and Claude does it too, but I found Gemini to be much better at sort of doing it and then explaining it to you what it has done and making sure to leave the smallest footprint possible. It doesn't touch a lot of other files and so on and so forth. Another thing that I found which is quite interesting, again, this could also be related to, all of this can be attributed to perhaps prompt engineering, but as you're working in Cursor, you don't really think about prompt engineering. Another thing I discovered is Gemini actually goes through your directory structure more readily and uses the things that you already have in place. So for instance, you could have a utility function already written in your repo. And if you want something done, it's very windy now, so I don't know if it is actually blocking my, giving a lot of noise. If it is, my apologies. If you already have a library function, a lot of times Claude wouldn't find it even if it needs it, and then it would just write it in the same class file, and down the line, be like, Claude, have you looked into this folder? Can you move it over there, or can you consolidate them too? Whereas Gemini, even without me asking, would actually know to look in the proper folder, directory structure to find potentially if there's something over there. And this could be a result of it being better at KMP projects because it's more intimately familiar with KMP project directory structures. But this is another important distinction between those two. So in summary, my experience so far has been, again, the AI thing is inevitable, right? If you're not using it, if you're still resistant to it, good luck. Developers who do use it will be far more productive than you can ever be. And then this is a force multiplier for indie developers, really. A lot of areas that you don't really have a lot of experiences in. Big corporations have a lot of money to hire different types of people to work a project for them. You don't, but you have this $20 per month assistant that you can ask questions about. Really incredible. So start using AI if you haven't. You'd be very stupid not to. And if you're programming using AI, use Cursor. You could explore some other options, but save yourself some trouble. You'd be tinkering a lot more with other tools than Cursor. Cursor, download it, install it, run it, you start coding right away. And within Cursor, use Claude for brainstorming, especially for UI components. It does a fantastic job, even if you don't know what to ask it. and then resort to Gemini 2.5 Pro for everything else, for code and for everything else. This is especially true for Kotlin-based projects, KMP projects, Android projects. That's it for this week. And these thoughts will probably change very rapidly. The AI world is changing faster than I can keep up with, faster than most people can keep up with. So I hope to keep those videos up to date, because what's true this month may very well not be true next month. Anyways, see you next time.